solar panels, AI, and weird bird art? Is the future of drone warfare escalating and getting pretty strange? We're going to talk about all the ways that the next phase of warfare is probably going to be, awful. Let's get into it. Okay, so this I thought was a really interesting story. This is a leaked photo from a drone, reportedly a Russian drone in Ukrainian territory. But the takeaway from this here that I think is most significant is this thingy right here. This is, well, a solar panel. And you may think, well, okay, cool, a solar panel. Why is it on here? Well, the answer seems to be that we know that one of the most frequent Russian drone tactics, particularly with their fiber optic FPVs, is ambushes. And the reason is pretty straightforward, because when you have an FPV with a fiber optic cable attachment, right? It weighs, they've gotten a lot lighter, but they're still 2 to 3 kilograms in size. And they have a very limited spool. So you're going to burn your battery out faster, and you have less total maneuverability. So if you get to a tree line, you don't see a target, and you zip the drone back and forth, you're actually going to run out of spool of wire, potentially even faster than your battery runs out. So the Russians and now the Ukrainians have evolved their tactics. They have turned these into flying mines, where they will find a position, for example, the roof of a farmhouse. They will settle onto it, and they will power down the drone except for the camera. And they will sit and wait, because they know that if they know there are Russian positions somewhere forward of that drone, and they are along one of the only unmined roadways, and the drone simply has to sit there, and the operator watching and watching and watching and waiting until they see a Russian logistics vehicle pass, and then they send a signal to turn on the drone, and it strikes. If you're a member of Combat Vet News, right, this is my version of Patreon. It's an uncensored site where twice a week I upload the analysis and the videos of raw combat footage, the stuff that YouTube would never let me show you, and often it's footage sent to me from units on the front lines. So if you want to support the channel, right, you can become a member. The link is always in the description. So just do me a favor, check it out. But if you are a member on there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you know that this ambush tactic, literally those drones can activate and strike. They can be hitting their target within 10 seconds. We actually timed it on one of those videos. And so the only question is, how do these drones manage to sit there in this low power mode for hours and hours and hours, potentially even days, right? Well, the Russians seem to have figured out that you can actually extend the life by simply strapping a solar panel to the battery. Now, this seems to be a pretty crude version of it, but a lot of Russian battlefield innovations tend to look this way, at least at the start. And they're experimenting with this idea. Can we fly this drone and land it here with this solar panel attached? And will this enable us to keep the battery alive indefinitely until we see Ukrainian logistics vehicles? Right? Because remember, it's not even necessarily about, oh, it needs to be able to fully charge the battery. It doesn't. It just needs to be able to provide enough power to keep the camera feed going, or to kind of slow the burn rate, to make sure that when a target does present itself, there's at least enough juice left in the battery for it to turn on and strike. Because nothing would be more frustrating than spending 2 days staring at a screen, like a maniac, waiting for a Russian or Ukrainian vehicle to pass, and then you see it and you go, drone, activate, and it goes low battery, right? So this is just a crude example of some of the innovation we're seeing. But here is another leaked photo. This is actually from a Ukrainian interceptor drone. We've talked about this. Again, this is also footage that was sent to actually me from frontline units who operate these interceptors. And Russian reconnaissance planes now are frequently spotted and frequently intercepted by Ukrainian quadcopter FPVs. But reportedly, a lot of these FPVs are now using computer or machine vision, right? And the idea is that these machine learning software algorithms have been trained to identify Russian drones from a database of successful strikes. And once they've been trained on that, right, what they're also trained on is, of course, to recognize, well, what isn't a drone. And so stuff like this, where you have the white of a cloud and the black outline of a bird, probably it seems the operator is hoping will function as camouflage, not camouflage to you and I, but camouflage to a computer vision, to a machine learning software, right? Again, if I was to clip this out and upload it to ChatGPT, they may actually say, oh, this is a bird in flight, right? And if you can fool, an AI algorithm, you can definitely fool one on board an interceptor drone, which is going to be much simpler and cruder. So the fact is that we're seeing these sort of cheapo evolutions, for lack of a better term. But what we're also seeing is across the battlefield, a huge surge in AI, and for a couple of reasons. First, if you are a tech company, you are looking at one of the biggest AI companies in the world, and you are saying, damn, these guys make some money. We're talking about Palunteer Technologies, right? Now, if you were in the military and you ever encountered anyone in the kind of human intelligence or signals intelligence field, I remember in 2010, I remember having analysts tell me, guys, they gave us this tool called Palunteer and it is the real deal. Well, again, now the rest of the public clearly figured this out, saying, listen, Palunteer, remember 2 years ago, this was $6 a share. Now it is 180. But crucially, it's because they provide AI combat solutions, right? And this is pretty crucial here. PE means for every dollar that Palunteer earns, the potential of combat AI is so great that for every dollar of profit Palunteer earns, the market gives them $600 in market cap. That makes their shares $600. So if you own a share of Palunteer, for every dollar of profit it makes, it provides $600 of additional equity to shareholders. And so if you are an AI startup, if you go to an investor and say, listen, we can be as good at Palunteer when it comes to making drones, investors are going to throw money at you. What does that mean? Well, that means that if you're Ukraine or even your American companies, you are dumping resources into becoming the Palunteer of strike drones. But by the way, the Palunteer of strike drones, rumor is also Palunteer. But check it out. Ukrainian soldiers, right, are already launching, for example, some of these software systems, right? A Gogol M, which is a mothership that contains a bunch of FPV computer vision drones that then deploy 200 plus kilometers into Russia, dropping the drones hanging off its wings. They zip around, searching for targets, likely around known sort of Russian bases, like saying, okay, we know we're releasing you near a Russian airfield. No, the AI has to find an airplane and blow that airplane up. And so you have to train it to be like, what is an airplane? Where do I hit it? How do I blow it up? And so, but this is just one example. For example, we also have stories about other companies. Let's see if we can find it. Here's a company called Twist Robotics. He adds, there is no technology on the battlefield that survives longer than 3 months as an effective measure against something. And of course, he claims he's the first producer of drones with autonomous terminal guidance systems deployed by Ukraine's armed forces. And this is interesting because you may be thinking to yourself, well, Paul, everything I've read about AI says that they need training data, right? And so, well, the Ukrainians are actually trying to produce exactly that. They say, listen, Ukrainians are saying, listen, if you're a soldier who films your kills of Russian soldiers or tanks and uploads that footage into our database, you can earn reward points. That's right. Just like you earn Starbucks points every time you buy a matcha latte, Ukrainians earn some Starbucks points every time they blow up a Russian. And so they can use that to buy more cool swag, which, by the way, guys, if you want to help the Ukrainians buy more cool swag without having to kill someone first, check the link in the description because, of course, we are doing a drone protection fundraiser. Check the link in the description. You guys are helping Ukrainian units protect themselves from these drones, buy their own long-range reconnaissance drones, mobility gear, and lots of netting. They hook us up with some patches and stuff. And so we really appreciate all you guys that help. Again, that link also in the description. Okay. Just got to shout these guys out because they're doing a great job. Oh, and by the way, I just got word that a anonymous donor has pledged to double everyone's donations going forward over the next 2 weeks. So if you're going to make a donation, even a little bit, right? Maybe skip that matcha latte. The $8 will turn into 16. And that makes a difference, man. That makes a difference. So the idea, of course, of this program that the Ukrainians are running is to say, listen, we're going to build a database of all the successful drone strikes that a human has basically ever done. And remember, based on sort of the casualties that we've heard, we can infer that that number in a given month is going to be in the tens of thousands, given that about 75 to 85% of casualties in this war are caused by drones. And we know, for example, from the president kind of mouthing off that Russia loses about 10 to 20,000 troops a month. We know that that implies that at least 15,000, possibly more, successful drone strikes are taking place. And that doesn't even count the wounded and logistics vehicles that are taken out that might not harm any soldiers, but would still be considered successful strikes. So there's a huge AI training data set. There's a huge number of AI companies that are trying to do this. And the fact is that when you look at the math, it is so obvious that this is a just absolutely, this is absolutely cost effective. One example they point out is that, again, Ukraine is trying to build these models that recognize targets and understand prioritization. It's like, we don't have full autonomy. We have a human factor. We need to, but we're developing to take autonomy further. Absolutely true. But I think the key thing is that the math is absolutely mind-blowing. Because let's see if they talk about it. I can't remember if this is the article. They profile a bunch of these companies. But what I think is most essential to understand is that the Ukrainians, if they can get this cost down to the cost of a GPU, right, $500, plus a $500 FPV drone, you're talking about maybe $1,000 to strike a target autonomously, no pilot needed. Comparable tech in the current U.S. arsenal, something like a cruise missile, even a Hellfire, right? But even a Hellfire has to be shot from a drone piloted by a person. You're talking about $5 to $10 million. So you can, or put another way, you could field hundreds, maybe even thousands of strike drones for a cost of a single cruise missile. And this is the absolute insanity that is happening at the battlefield right now, right? And what is, but bear in mind, this is an arms race. It's not like Ukraine is alone in this. The Russians, for example, have already been smuggling in NVIDIA chips. By the way, guys, worth noting, again, if you need further evidence why I'm such a critic of the administration lately, the administration had banned AI chips from being sold to China because they believed correctly that these AI chips, one, were going to empower the Chinese to make empower the Chinese military to build their own version of these AI drones. And trust me, you do not want to have American soldiers being the Russian side in this war. That is, American soldiers charging into a wave of Chinese-made AI drones. But also, the Chinese are selling these to the Russians. In fact, they found NVIDIA chips already in Shahed drones. And the only reason they would be on there, like the Jetson Orin, is, well, to provide them with an AI autonomous guidance system, right? They want to get these drones not just to fly in predictable ways, but to have an AI that allows them to not just to fly in difficult to predict ways, even react to Ukrainian air defenses and select targets in the event they cannot make it to their designated target. So this kind of arms race is not stopping. It's never going to stop. And this is the thing to remember, is that I understand the fears people have. I share your fears about this crazy AI tech. And the hard part is, throughout history, the question has never been, should we all agree not to use this technology? Because the answer to that is almost always no. Somebody in the world, some country is having their Ukraine moment, is sitting there and going, our enemies are strong. We are so much smaller. We need every advantage we can get. And so we need to pioneer this new technology, right? Look at the US in World War II. They said, listen, we're fighting Germany and Japan on both sides. It's going to take us millions of soldiers to defeat Japan. It's worth it for us to invest in this scary nuclear technology. Well, the last thing you want to do is to be the country that actually is just slow to the jump. You don't want to wake up one day and look around and say, damn, the Russian military has 2 million attack drones and we can't jam them. And the Chinese military has 5 million attack drones, and they think for themselves and they are trained to kill US troops. And America looks around and says, we have 10 drones and they cost $5 million a piece. Because when you don't have that, when you have the outdated tools, it results in a lot of casualties. So again, as I've always pointed out here, there's been an extensive amount of agreement and info sharing and technology development between Ukraine and the United States. So seeing that technology, that ability go to Russia would be a devastating blow to the future U.S. ability to defend itself. Anyway, hit that subscribe button. See you in the next one. Cheers.